August, crews began transplanting the first of 400 swamp white oak trees into a plaza at Ground Zero, where nearly 2,800 people died on September 11, 2001. The 3-hectare site will be a memorial to all those who died in the terror attacks that day in New York, Pennsylvania, and outside Washington. Joe Daniels is president of the National September 11th Memorial and Museum.
Now, we've been working with the Port Authority for the last few years, and it is an incredibly complex construction job. And we fully appreciate all the desire to get this done. The reality is that there's been a tremendous amount of good work happening over the last few years. And these trees are not only a reminder, but a beautiful reminder of that progress, of the commitment and the heart that everybody has into this project.
The trees are expected to grow to a forest canopy more than 24 meters tall, shading visitors below, and plaques bearing the names of those who died. Nearby, waterfalls will plunge into 2 square recessed pools set deep in the footprints of the Twin Towers.
To see these trees starting to soar to the sky on a day that, it's not dissimilar to the way 9/11/2001 was. It's just a beautiful reminder that this is going to be a sacred place where people are going to come and really come together. So we're thrilled with all the work that's been done.
While the memorial is slated to open next year, the September 11 museum's opening date has been pushed to 2013. New York officials say they expect the memorial and museum to become the city's top tourist destination. And major companies are expressing interest in leasing office space in the 5 new commercial skyscrapers to be built at the World Trade Center site, particularly One World Trade Center. It will be the tallest building in the United States. New York Governor David Paterson spoke earlier this year about the progress.
When it is completed, it will be the new crown jewel of Lower Manhattan, as it will be an international financial hub and will attract world travelers who are anxious to see evidence of the human spirit overcoming adversity.
Formerly called Freedom Tower, One World Trade Center is now over 35 stories and rising 1 floor a week. Among its first expected occupants are a China-based business, Van Tone Industrial, and the magazine publishing company Condé Nast. Bank of America reportedly may also become a tenant, in part because the building is being constructed according to the latest environmentally sustainable design principles. Carolyn Weaver, VOA News, New York.
J. Joseph Ferguson. Amelia V. Fields.
Echoes of lives lost on a sunny late summer day 7 years ago. At the Pentagon, the names of the 184 people who died there were read aloud on the anniversary of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks on the U.S. The memorial, built at the spot where American Airlines Flight 77 slammed into the Pentagon's West Wall, is the nation's first major September 11th memorial.
Today, as we dedicate this memorial, we also dedicate ourselves to never forget what happened here. And we make a solemn pledge to never again let this happen in America.
In New York, city officials and victims' family members gathered to remember the 2,751 people killed when 2 hijacked planes hit the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. The names of each victim were read aloud, some by family members.
And my father, Daniel T. Bergstein, I love you and miss you, Daddy.
On the White House South Lawn, President and Mrs. Bush and Vice President and Mrs. Cheney observed the moment the first hijacked plane struck the first tower. Ceremonies were also held in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where United Flight 93 crashed to the ground after passengers fought back against the hijackers. This year's ceremony in Pennsylvania includes a 5-meter-tall cross-shaped segment of the World Trade Center's North Tower, escorted to the Shanksville site from New York by hundreds of motorcyclists. Robert Raffel, VOA News.
It is a decision that has generated much controversy in Congress. Democrats like Senator Patrick Leahy support Attorney General Eric Holder's decision to try the self-proclaimed architect of the World Trade Center attacks and 4 alleged conspirators in a civilian federal court, not a military tribunal.
They committed murder here in the United States, and we'll seek justice here in the United States.
But Republicans like Senator Jeff Sessions disagree with the Attorney General's decision, saying trying the terror suspects in a civilian court could give them legal rights the suspects do not deserve.
The United States court system was not designed to try unlawful enemy combatants. And Mr. Holder, I don't think these are normal defendants. These are people we are at war with.
We know that we can prosecute terrorists in our federal courts safely and securely because we have been doing so for years.
Holder says there are currently more than 300 convicted international and domestic terrorists behind bars in federal prison. He says based on evidence that has not made public in the 9/11 case, he believes that trying the 5 suspects in a U.S. criminal court will give prosecutors the best chance of success.
I asked a lot of questions, and I weighed every alternative. And at the end of the day, it was clear to me that the venue in which we are most likely to obtain justice for the American people is in federal court.
The alleged mastermind of the September 11th attacks, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and his 4 alleged co-conspirators are being held in the U.S. military prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Holder says the 5 terror suspects will likely be tried together in New York City, near where the towers fell. The Attorney General says he plans to seek the death penalty for each of the alleged conspirators. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News.
Just after sunrise, the USS New York sailed into the city. It was greeted by hundreds of onlookers. The ship's bow contained 7.5 tons of steel from the World Trade Center, as well as the images of the Twin Towers in its stern. Almost 15% of the crew is from New York State. Members of New York's police, fire and ambulance services saluted the ship as the New York came to a stop and fired its guns. Many came here to remember the events of September the 11th, 2001. Grace Crowley and Peter Capretta folded a flag to remember fallen friends.
Just that people need to remember every day. And they need to teach their children.
Bill Jennings, a veteran, says he thinks it's fitting that the steel from the World Trade Center ruins is now being used to defend America.
Knowing that there is 7 tons, almost 8 tons of steel from that happening that day, it makes me proud.
The U.S. New York sailed all the way from Louisiana, taking 2 weeks to reach Manhattan. Allison and David Sanderson traveled from New Orleans. David Sanderson inspected the ship for the Navy before it set sail. He says those who built the ship knew it was a special project.
It was amazing because, you know, we handled the steel, you know, like kids with kitten gloves. I mean, it was really neat. You could just feel the sense of pride in everybody that built the ship.
The ship will be officially commissioned on Saturday, and it will be open to the public for several days. People in New York will be able to see up close the ship that bears the city's name. Nathan King, VOA News, New York.
In my belief,
the Queen last addressed the General Assembly as a young woman in 1957. She said in the intervening years she has witnessed great change, much of it good. But she noted that many important things have not changed, including the aims and values which inspired the United Nations Charter.
To promote international peace, security and justice, to relieve and remove the blight of hunger, poverty and disease, and to protect the rights and liberties of every citizen.
The Queen praised the United Nations for its role in reducing conflict, offering humanitarian assistance and tackling the effects of poverty in many parts of the world. But she acknowledged that so much more remains to be done.
For over 6 decades, the United Nations has helped to shape the international response to global dangers. The challenge now is to continue to show this clear and convening leadership while not losing sight of your ongoing work to secure the security, prosperity, and dignity of our fellow human beings.
While at UN headquarters, Queen Elizabeth met with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who in his welcoming remarks to her in the General Assembly told the Queen she is an anchor for our age and a living symbol of grace, constancy, and dignity. After their visit to the UN, the Queen and her husband, Prince Philip, visited the site of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center towers. There, the royal couple paid tribute to the victims. The Queen also inaugurated an English garden dedicated to the 67 Britons killed in the terrorist attacks. Margaret Bashir, VOA News, the United Nations.
The first known reaction to the September 11th attacks was recorded by a French film crew documenting life at Ladder Company 1. It was an expletive uttered in disbelief by firefighter Stephen Olson. He related that moment to VOA.
At that point, I didn't know for sure that it was a terrorist attack, but I knew something was wrong because there was nothing wrong with the plane and it flew right in there. And the more I thought about it, then I realized, we're under attack.
By the time the second plane hit, Olson says he was in the North Tower pulling people out of the building. He said the building began to shake violently, throwing people around like rag dolls with hurricane-force winds and extreme heat. Ladder Company 1 did not lose any firefighters on September 11th, but Olson says many of them are coming down with cancer, possibly in connection with subsequent recovery efforts at Ground Zero.
We're trying to keep on top of our health, trying to make sure that we're going to be all right. But, it's scary. We're almost like sitting here waiting our turn, to see who's going to be sick next.
Olson says he saw a lot of disturbing things that day. People jumping from the towers, piles of bodies, and other horrors that haunt him to this day.
For me, I'm still living the raw ugliness. I still live it. I live it almost every day. I have flashbacks, bad dreams. I can't sleep at night. I'm always anxious. It's just, it hasn't stopped for me.
New firefighters at Ladder Company 1 have replaced most of those who worked there 9 years ago. On this, the 9th anniversary, they remembered those who died. Station Chief Michael Vindigny recalled a biblical psalm during a ceremony at the station.
My help comes from the maker of heaven and earth. We believe that the Almighty asks us to be human helpers with Him as we seek to make this a better world for all people.
New York City firefighters are closely associated with the attacks as witnesses and participants in history. More than 325 firefighters and paramedics gave their lives that day, and others continued to suffer various physical and emotional consequences. But they say they all remain committed to making the world a better place. Peter Fedinsky, VOA News, New York.
This is my 9/11 zoetrope showing news footage of United Airlines Flight 175 crashing into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. This animation device was invented in the 1800s and is best seen with the naked eye. It is difficult to record the optical illusion with a video camera, so I took still photographs of the images inside to create a smoother representation of the zoetrope. I needed to learn from the tragedy. It felt wrong to ignore what happened, even though most people consider 9/11 art to be taboo. In an odd way, I agree that certain images should be off limits, but the news media had no problem showing the plane crashes, building collapses, and people committing suicide on national television. CNN showed the plane crash 109 times on September 11, 2001 from 9 a.m. to midnight, approximately once every 8 minutes. I believe the news media acted against peaceful society on 9/11 and terrorized the viewing public by showing those images over and over, giving power to the very people that wanted to frighten us. For more information about this project, please visit my website, 9/11 flip book.
Y Vía Producciones presentan Tiro de Gracia, de Sergio Zurita, cuando la comedia ya no es tan divina. Con Adal Ramones y Juan Carlos Colombo. No te pierdas Tiro de Gracia. Todos los lunes, 8 de la noche, Teatro Poliforum. Boletos en Ticketmaster al 5325-9000. Si él invita.